Hello, everybody, and welcome into another season preview show here at the Hockey Writers. I'm your host, Matthew Zator, and we are up to the Calgary Flames here on the previews. And as we count down the days to the regular season, got Derek Olsen here who covers the Flames. How's it going?
It's going pretty great.
All right. Well, like I say, hockey's just around the corner. It's been a long off season. Been the off season's been pretty much quiet until August, and then all of a sudden, some GMs kind of woke up with the Oilers doing stuff, Net Predators doing stuff. But the Flames didn't do anything really since free agency started in the draft. They did all their trades during the season and then early on in the off season. So, of course, didn't make the playoffs. Traded a ton of guys away. They're in effectively a rebuild now. I mean, I don't know if you want to call it a retool, like it's more a rebuild, I think, after trading with their starting goaltender and Markstrom, now going into the season with Dustin Wolf as the pretty much starter. So lots of changes, lots of uncertainty, I guess, going into this season. It's kind of unknown what's going to happen. So let's just dive right in and talk about the forwards going in and not a lot of changes really in the offseason. They did add a few free agents in Anthony Mantha. That's probably the biggest one that they added up front. They did add Ryan Lomberg in the bottom six. So Derek, what do you think about the new additions? The forward group as a whole. Are they gonna struggle? I mean, they still got Jonathan Huberdeau, I guess, as their big money guy. But what do you think about the forward group going into this season?
Yeah, no, as you mentioned, largely unchanged. No huge additions, which is good. We're not in a position to be spending a lot of money or, signing on to these long-term contracts. It's just not fitting our time. And like you said, we're in rebuild mode. So we don't need veteran big name free agents right now. We just need to focus on our youth and provide them opportunity to play at the NHL level, which is what I think will be our biggest issue. Um, Adding Anthony Mantha and the other free agent forward we signed was Ryan Lomberg. Both great players, both good contracts. Mantha was signed to a 1 year, $3.5 million sort of prove it contract, if you will. He's a prime candidate to be dealt at the trade deadline. He's a three-time 20-plus goal scorer. It's kind of fallen on hard times with injuries and inconsistent play. And basically, both the team and player are just hoping he can kind of get back and rediscover his scoring touch on the Flames so we can recoup assets for him and he can get a chance at winning a Stanley Cup and or signing a long-term contract somewhere else. And then Lomberg obviously got his start with the Flames back in 2017, and he's back after winning a Stanley Cup of his own with the Florida Panthers, but not really a needle mover.
Mm-hmm.
He's a bottom six energy forward whose focus is really punishing the opposition. Big hits, winning battles along the corners and along the boards, and not really generating offense. That's not his job. But he'll complement the forward core nicely as another agitator, sort of alongside Martin Pospisil, and he adds another winning mentality to the locker room. We have another Stanley Cup winner now. Like we also have Nazem Kadri, Blake
Mm-hmm.
Coleman, and now Longberg, and that helps player development for sure. But the big forward storyline will be who plays where.
Mm-hmm.
Um, our center ice position is very sparse right now, and we have an abundance of NHL wingers, especially after adding those aforementioned two guys. It'll be really hard for Ryan Huska to get each man enough playing time, but double-edged sword. It also means each player will have to earn it by playing to the best of their abilities. As it sits, there's daily face-off and different websites and stuff have our lineups, projected lineups. We don't have a top line. We don't have a line that we can put out to score goals. Even though, we have talented players. We have Nazem Kadri, who had 76 points to lead the team. And we have Huberdeau, who has the touch, and he's, at times he can be good, but obviously he's not the same player that he was. And Blake Coleman scored 30 goals for the first time ever, but none of the guys that we have are really game-breaking talents. And so that's a struggle, but that's something that'll come with our drafted players with after they develop. That's something you can't really grab in free agency, and not many teams are willing to trade those players either. So that'll come with time. But as it sits, I mean, we have Nazem Kadri, Michael Backlund, captain, um, and then we have fourth liner Kevin Rooney,
Mhm.
and we could put Cole Schwint in the mix there, and Connor Zary can play a bit of center. Um, but otherwise, majority of our forwards are natural wingers, and that's going to really hurt us, I think, down the stretch. And there's just not going to be enough playing time for, and especially players like Matt Coronado, um, players like that are going to struggle. Jacob Pelletier is another one that's gonna it's going to be hard to find him time when you're also kind of trying to juggle like the Andre Kuzmenko's and
Mhm.
Igor Sharangovich's and such like that. So it'll be tough. It'll be interesting to see the line combinations come training camp and come the opening of the regular season. But yeah, just a tough time finding the opportunities to play for those younger players that need the development. Mind you, a lot of our players will probably be traded, like the
Mhm.
Manthas and Kuzmenko will be gone to create some room. But yeah, Ryan Huska has a tough job ahead of him for sure.
Yeah, I think everyone's just speculating, guessing what the lines will be. They're just throwing them in there. Yeah, that may happen. Who knows? I don't think Backlund's the top line center. I think Kadri is. I mean, Daily Faceoff's got Kadri as the third line center right now. I don't know. Sharangovich, second line center. I don't see. He's a winger, right? So it's
Yeah,
like
I agree. Yeah.
I don't know. It is an interesting group looking at them. It's going to be interesting. That's for sure. To see where all guys kind of slip in there and who wins roster spots and all that, right? All right, let's move to the defense, which is again, this is an interesting group too. There's Mackenzie Weegar, who's probably your best. Rasmus Andersson, Mackenzie Weegar, your two best defensemen. They did get Kevin Ball from the New Jersey Devils, getting him in the Jacob Markstrom trade. Jake Bean added in there as well. There is two legitimate top pairing guys if we want to look at Weegar and Anderson. What do you think about this group? We'll start with Kevin Ball because he's the new addition. And he's relatively young too, so he's not a guy that you're going to be trading. He's hopefully going to be part of this rebuild.
Yeah, no, there was plenty of insider information and accounts that came regarding the kind of background conversations between the New Jersey Devils and Flames brass when they were trying to trade Jacob Markstrom. And it was my understanding that the Flames wouldn't budge on not having Kevin Ball come as part of the return package. They really wanted him, which was interesting. He's a coveted piece, and they obviously love what he brings to the table. He's tenacious, gritty. He's just a general hard-nosed defender. And yeah, like you said, he's young. He's 24. He hasn't played very many games, but he's huge. He's 6'6". He's 230 pounds, and thus he has immense length on the ice. Right, he's able to clog up those passing lanes, and his size allows him to block a ton of shots. He's just your prototypical defensive defenseman. His job isn't to score goals. Um, but he's a punisher. He has big hits. Like I said, block shots, gets in the way, and just wins those puck battles and can move the puck up pretty well. He has a good first pass out of the zone, and as well, he's his I would say his best strength is clearing the front of the net, which is going to be pretty valuable given our young, kind of unproven goalie tandem that we have this year. So getting in the way of some of those kind of high danger chances would help the Dustin Wolves of the Flames. Um, but yeah, I mean, I just think it was interesting that they wanted him. You know,
Mm-hmm.
he was the guy, and yeah, I mean, we need a replacement, especially after Chris Tanev's gone. He was kind of our go-to shutdown guy, and we obviously have the offense from the back end with the Uyghurs and
Mm-hmm.
Andersons of the world. So that's kind of covered. So we really need somebody to step up and be the kind of shutdown guy that you can put out on the penalty kill and play big minutes against the other team's best forwards. And I think the Flames brass think that Kevin Ball is going to be the guy.
Yeah, I mean he was pretty good in New Jersey last season, and I know before that, Christy used to write for the Hockey Writers. So she always loved him as a prospect. So yeah, he is a lot of potential in the NHL. Like you say, not much offense to his game, but he will bring that defensive mind and that size and length to what you need, especially with guys that you don't have right now on the team, and he's going to be, I think, a big part of this group going forward. I got Daniil Miramanov, who was in, of course, came over in the Hanifin trade with the Golden Knights. So, I mean, he was okay. I think he was pretty good towards the end of the season. I don't know where he's going to fit in. but it's going to be probably not going to be a very good defense. I mean, you'd hope that it's better than it looks, but you do got some legitimate NHLers in there, so it may be better than you think.
Yeah, no, the other ad obviously was Jake Bean,
Yeah.
which again isn't a huge needle mover. That's not going to make you a contender overnight, but just another kind of solid younger. He's 26 player, but more of a two-way defenseman. He can jump up and get into the offense and contribute in that end of the ice. And the other thing that he has going for him is he is a Calgarian through and through. He was born and raised in Cowtown and played his junior career with the WHL's Calgary Hitmen. So, and he's the son of the one of the team's chairman, I believe. I can't remember off the top of my head. So he's invested that way. But yeah, he's a bottom six defender in my opinion. And yeah, like you said, Daniil Marimana, we still don't really know what we have with him. And then after that, we have Braden Pahal and Joel Hanley and just a kind of whole handful of kind of sixth, seventh defenders. So a lot of question marks after that top two. But to our credit now with all of our trades and such, there's a handful of bright young defenders that are kind of knocking on the door. Like a lot of fans think Zane Parekh is going to make the team out of training camp. You know, all power to him, but we'll see. But Hunter Brustevich also has a good chance. He's very, very good and very ready to turn pro at least, whether that's with the Flames or the Wranglers. But you also have Jeremy Poirier, Ilya Solovyov, Yan Kuznetsov. There's lots of young defensemen that'll be wanting to earn some minutes as well.
Yeah, it's going to be again. This is the same with the forwards. You're going to have a battle in training camp to see who takes the spots, and that's going to be a fun thing. But that's the one good thing about rebuilding teams. It's fun to watch training camp where all these guys kind of there's a lot of spots available, and you see who kind of beats out the competition. So it'll be interesting to see. All right, we mentioned the goaltending. I mentioned Dustin Wolf a couple times there. He is coming in as the starting goalie on a lot of depth charts. I don't think Dan Vladar is ahead of him. But you'd hope that they may be doing a 1A, 1B type thing, because I don't think you want Wolf playing a ton in his first full season as the starter. What do you think about this tandem? Do you think it's a good enough, especially with Wolf being the starter? Is Vladar the right backup for him? Or do you think they'd need to do something there?
Yeah, I mean, developmentally wise, you'd really like to have more of a veteran NHLer to back him up to kind of learn from the ropes and who can actually play. Um, the two of them combined, Vladar and Wolf have 93 NHL games under their
Yeah.
belts, so really questionable. Wolf's obviously the franchise's sort of golden goose and has long been considered the best goalie outside of the NHL. Um, Obviously, multiple junior goalies of the year awards, AHL goalie of the year twice, and AHL MVP 2 years ago. And he played 18 games last year. Didn't really look like a world beater, unfortunately. Excuse me. He went 7-7-1. He had a 3.16 goals against average and an 893 save percentage. Mind you, a poor team in front of him, and this year will be the same. But he just didn't look dominant, or he looked like he needed more time before being thrust into the league like he kind of is now. Um, and Vladar has never played more than 27 games in the NHL in a season. And I look back at his career stats, he's never played 45 professional games or more than 45 professional games in a season in general in his career. So very questionable that they're going with him. And he's also coming off of a hip surgery, which ended his last season early. So a tough one for a lot of goalies to come back from. They need that kind of movement, that swiveling and pivoting. Yeah, so I don't know. I don't know who will be the starter, who will be the backup, how they'll start the season, how it'll finish, if it'll be a 1A, 1B, but with two Bs.
Yeah.
Well, right.
Yeah.
The organization also just has no backup, pun intended.
Mhm.
Um, they signed undrafted 27-year-old journeyman Devin Cooley, who
Yeah.
has six NHL games under his belt. And then they have overseas signing Walteri Ignatu. Not familiar with him, but he's making his North American debut this season, and that's it. That's the
Yeah.
four guys. Vladar and Wolf will be getting shelled this year behind that previously discussed sort of shoddy defense. And neither goalie will be winning 40 games behind this roster, but that's okay. We're in that rebuild. We we don't want wins. We just want growth and development.
Mhm.
So the hope is that Wolf doesn't lose confidence or get injured or anything like that, and instead kind of learns the keys to NHL success despite the team he's playing behind.
Yeah, it's unfortunate they don't. Wolf doesn't have they no, like the Buffalo Sabres have got the luxury to go Devin Levi going down to the minors, and they still got two guys that could still play in the NHL. They don't have that, so it's going to be interesting to see how they kind of manage him because you don't want to screw up his confidence, especially so early in his career, which you can do to a goaltender mentally. It is tough getting shelled every night and still developing into a really good goalie. So yeah, that's going to be interesting to watch for sure. All right, let's talk about the division, and this is pretty easy to kind of look at how they stack up. It's not good. Looking at the top, you've got the Oilers, Canucks, Golden Knights, those are the Kings, basically your big four there, and then you've got the Kraken, who's probably going to be a better team this year. The Flames are there. Then of course you got the Sharks and the Ducks, going to be the bottom feeders below the Flames, you'd think. But what do you think? Where do they stack up here? Are they in the bottom? Are they fighting for the bottom? Or are they in that kind of middle range as they were last season?
Yeah, they don't stack up very well. Um, everybody
Trying
else
to
in
be
the
nice.
Pacific, yeah, I know. Everybody else in the Pacific got better, basically. The Canucks and Oilers will pardon me, be amongst the best in the league, and they'll feast on their fellow Western Canadian counterpart. As will Las Vegas, Los Angeles, and the Seattle Kraken, who I think added some solid pieces of their own, and they will be better this year. The Flames will likely be better than the Anaheim Ducks and San Jose Sharks, but I mean, even the Sharks, I know they have a whole new look roster
Yeah.
essentially, and they have, Macklin Celebrini and Will Smith and former Flame Tyler Toffoli amongst other people. They could, catch fire and give them a run for their money. At any time, all it takes is that rookie core to develop quickly, and then they're a hot team. And so in that case, I would hesitantly put the Flames at sixth in the division, but very easily could go to seventh.
The Ducks could be an interesting team too. You don't know. I mean, I'm waiting for them just to have all their young guys and they just figure it all out, and then you've got a really good team there too. So, this division's going to be really tough. Once all these teams develop, because you're looking at the Flames, who've got some good guys now in the pipeline that they could potentially be a really good team soon too, and bounce back from this. So it's going to be interesting this division, watching it in the next 5 years, because all these young teams that have all these young players, they're going to turn it around, and you may have an interesting dynamic moving forward. So very interesting. All right, let's move to our quick fire round, and these can be 1, 2 sentence answers. But what do you got for this? First one, what's the biggest storyline going into this season? Question mark. I mean, there's a lot to choose from, especially from a rebuilding team here.
Yeah, I would go back to the goaltending. Just how will it fare? Will Wolf take this opportunity and run with it, or will he sink? Obviously we don't want to jinx anything, but
Yeah.
yeah, it'll be something to keep your eye on every game, just watching, how he carries himself, if he's slumping on the bench, et
Mhm.
cetera, et cetera.
You hope that there's no double-digit blowouts like the Sharks gave their goaltenders last season. I think they have a better defense than the Sharks, that's for sure, I think.
Yeah.
All right, 1 or 2 breakout stars for this season.
Yeah, I would say Martin Pospisil. He looked amazing at the 2024 IIHF World Championships. He played for Slovakia and starred for the team. He scored a point per game before he got injured. And I think with an increased role this year, he could become more than just your kind of pest. I think he could actually contribute offensively on a nightly basis. And he had some great chemistry with Kadri and Kuzmenko down the stretch. And I think could be more. As well as we talked about previously, I think Kevin Ball has the potential to become the team's go-to shutdown defenseman this year, taking over for Chris Tanev and just leading the penalty kill. Hopefully those numbers get back higher up. Yeah, I think those two.
Yeah, those 2 good choices. I mean, there's obvious answers for this next one. One player that needs to bounce back, and I think one needed to bounce back last season, but who needs to do it?
Yeah, the easy and now seemingly annual answer is Jonathan Huberdeau.
Yeah.
Um, but you know what? To his credit, he had a really good second half to 2023, 2024. Um, I think he started the year with 25 points in his first 41 games, and he ended with like 34 points in the next 40
Mhm.
games. So, not to say that that won't carry into this season, but if he can pick that up, that's a 60 something point pace over a year. So, obviously not worth $10.5 million, but we'll take that. But my actual answer is Walker Duehr. Um, he had a fantastic rookie showing in 22, 23, but he looked really bad this last season.
Mhm.
And especially as we talked with so many, better younger players in the forward mix that are coming into the fold, he's going to lose his NHL playing opportunities if he continues to play poorly. So he's somebody that I think needs to really pick it up.
Yeah, I think he was really good in his what was it? That would have been the previous season.
Mhm.
And yeah, I couldn't kind of move it over to this season or this past season. So yeah, that's definitely a good answer there. All right. Next we've got talking about X factors. Now it doesn't have to be a player. It could be a situation or something, but what do you got for an X factor this season?
I do have a player, and I'm going to beat the dead horse. It's Dustin Wolf.
Mm,
Either again, he's not going to win 42 games, and he's not going to win the Vezina Trophy. But it's either he provides some glimmers of hope for the future or he doesn't.
mhm.
And that's going to be the biggest storyline and the biggest X factor of the 2024-25 season.
Yeah, like I say, you hope that he just is okay, is good. I mean, that he doesn't get his confidence shot by allowing goals because he will allow them. It's just inevitable. But he's got to be able to keep his mental game still strong through it, and that's gonna be a big one for sure. All right, let's talk some prospects. Who do you? I mean, there's a lot of spots open. I don't know if there's to be surprises. There's probably a good one here, but rookie or prospect that could surprise make the roster here.
Yeah, I mentioned him briefly, Cole Schwint. Sort of become the forgotten piece in the big Kachuk Huberdeau Uyghur
Yeah.
trade, and really has yet to make any waves professionally as a hockey player. However, his saving graces are that he plays center and he's also right-handed. The Flames are really thin down the middle, like we discussed, and interestingly enough, they only have three forwards that aren't left-handed.
Hmm.
So just, to provide a bit of differentiation up front is always good. And he is a very solid NHLer. He knows his role. He knows that he's better suited for a defensive role. So personally, I'd rather see him occupy the fourth line center instead of expensive veteran Kevin Rooney, who again isn't really a needle mover. So you'd rather see a young person getting some experience in that role.
Yeah, especially on a rebuilding team, you want to maybe Schwint can actually potentially be more than a fourth line guy, but he needs to have the chance, right? So yeah, a big one. All right, outside of guys that can make the team, what prospects should fans be watching this season? Doesn't have to be in the NHL, AHL, beyond that too.
Yeah, I think a lot of Flames fans are going to be keeping their eyes on the Ontario Hockey League. Obviously, we have Zane Parekh, who, like I said, a lot of people think he's going to make the Flames or the Wranglers, and I think he still should play one more year in the OHL just for conditioning, for development. As well as Hunter Brustevich will start the year there probably, but could work his way into the Wranglers.
Mhm.
We also have our second rounder this year, Jacob Battaglia, who is very good. Third rounder defenseman Henry Muse, who is very, very underrated. And I think a great pickup in the third round. I think the scouting department did really well. And then we also have Luke Misa, who is brother of Michael Misa, who's supposed to be a high draft pick coming up here. They'll all be lighting up the O on the nightly. So, but as well, stay tuned to our minor league games, the Calgary Wranglers games. We're gonna have guys like Samuel Honzik, making his full transition to
Mhm.
pro. We're gonna still have our Jeremy Poyers, our Jacob Peltiers, Adam Klapka. William Strongren is another guy who's kind of had a really good second half in the AHL. And all those players will continue to grow and hopefully start dominating and working their way up.
Yeah, so watch the AHL and the OHL this season if you're a Flames fan watching prospects. So keep an eye on there. All right, this is not as easy as some teams. Who will lead the team in scoring, forwards and defense here?
Yeah, I think personally, Yegor Sharangovich continues his kind of upward trajectory, and I think he leads all the Flames forwards in scoring this year. Obviously, Kadri had an otherworldly season last year, but I'm hoping he'll be relied upon less this year.
Hmm.
Um, being 34, he's got some miles on him and stuff, and like we said, it's better to put those young players in those situations and lose or get scored on so they learn instead of putting the veteran out there to win the game, right? So I think hopefully guys like Sharangovich um, and the younger players up front will get more opportunities. So Kadri, his numbers will go down, but I think he'll be happy. He won't be as beat up at the end of the season. And then defense is easy. I think that's our 20 goal, 50
Yeah.
point scoring defenseman Mackenzie Weegar. All signs point to him leading the blue line and scoring again. Although Rasmus Andersson could make a strong push,
Mhm.
he's still very solid offensively, and um, I think 39 points last year, which was a down year for him. So that's saying something. Yeah, I think those are my two picks.
Right for the last question, I want to ask you about Anderson though. Is he a guy that you think could get traded this season? There, he has been in the rumors off and on. Is that a guy that's on the move? I mean, he's not an obvious one because he's got a contract beyond 1 year. But does that happen this season?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of conversations that are happening in the background that we don't know about. I couldn't tell you a team that probably wouldn't want to inquire about his services. He's an outstanding right shot two-way defenseman that has 2 years left at a very affordable $4.5 million cap
Yeah.
hit. I mean, who wouldn't want that? But there's been talks about Toronto. There's been talks about, I think Seattle before they got Montour. There's been a couple of teams that have been very interested. So, and I mean, he's just, unfortunately, we love him. Obviously, he's a Flames draft pick in 2015, and he's been with the team his whole career, alternate captain, working his way up the all-time franchise lists and such. But, his age and his contract, obviously, he'll be needing that re-signing in a couple of years. Just doesn't really line up with our team trajectory. So maybe not this season, but I'm thinking either this during the year or the off season. I don't think he will be a Flame come 2025, 2026. How's that?
There you go. Yeah, I think he's a guy that he's not part of this long-term build, but he's just going to get more assets from this team moving forward, but probably not this season. But you never know with the trade deadline and stuff like that happening. All right, last question, a bold prediction or a hot take for this coming season?
Yeah, I think somebody unexpected is going to get traded. Um, obviously there's Jonathan Huber's not going anywhere. He's stuck, him and his
Yeah.
$10.5 million contract, but there's a lot of rumblings of Nazem Kadri in trade talks, which I thought was crazy because that's another
Yeah.
contract that I would view as immovable. But somebody like that, or like a Blake Coleman, or I don't know, maybe a Mackenzie Weegar, but just
Mhm.
somebody that isn't Anderson, that isn't, somebody that you would think being traded, I think is going to be on the move this year.
I mean, they do got some interesting names. I mean, like you say, Huberto's not gonna, unless he all of a sudden starts playing up to his contract and teams think he's worth that. I don't know with him. I'm not really sure what happened. I mean, it's not like he lost his talent. He had 100 points some season. Where was it just because Barkov? I mean, was he the reason? I mean, you don't know with some of the players he played with. Maybe he just clicked with certain guys, and that's why he was so good. I don't know. It's just interesting he's fallen off so badly. And I mean, you don't lose talent. I don't know. Who knows? Who knows what happened with him? But you'd hope that for the Flames' sake that he does kind of figure it out sometime in this contract here, because he's going to be here for a long time.
Mhm.
All right. Well, thanks, Derek, for coming on the show and talking the Flames for this coming season. Make sure checking out everything at thehockeywriters.com for all the Flames content from all the Flames writers. Lots of great stuff going on for preview stuff going into the season. And then check out the Substack as well, which gives you all the all the best articles. Well, actually, all of them every week talking about them. And they're all great articles, not saying none of them are bad. Some of them are bad, but they're all great. So take a look at everything we got on the site and check out the YouTube channel for the rest of the previews. But until our next one, we'll see you next time.